are one of my favorite sections. So if we look at conics, what is a conic and where does it come from? Well, a conic, if you think of the word conic, it comes from the word cone. So if I look at some kind of cone here and imagine that this is a three-dimensional cone, it actually comes, the shapes that you can get come from a plane intersecting two conics like this. So a couple of different shapes I can get from this. There are four primary shapes, and those are the four that we're going to focus on. There are three secondary, kind of a different class of conic. We call them degenerate conics. But the four primary are going to be your circle, which you can notice. If I take the top part of this circle, right here, that's going to be a round surface. Now, I can also imagine a plane intersecting this. So if I think about a plane right here intersecting this surface, this part here that's going to intersect, that's also going to be a circle. It's going to be a round like here, so that's going to be a circle. And again, if I intersect it this way, that's going to be a round circle like so. Now, what if I don't have to intersect it evenly or nicely like that? And I don't. Another way that I could intersect this conic would be at some kind of diagonal here. If I take my plane and intersect it this way. Now, notice what's going to happen if I intersect it this way. This is going to be a circular edge, and it's going to come around like this. And I'm going to get kind of this shape here. Or if I intersect it this way, I'm going to get the same thing. I'm going to get this elliptical shape. And in fact, we call that the ellipse. Now, another way I can intersect this is if I intersect this from the top right down here. Notice that the shape you're going to get is you're going to get something that goes here and up. But then I also intersected on this end, because remember that the conics come from two cones on top of each other, like so. So I'm going to get this part going up. I'm also going to get this part coming down. And we call that shape a hyperbola. And the final shape that we look at is going to be, what if I intersect it right here, down the plane, or in fact, let me draw another one. So if I draw my conic, or my cone coming this way, if I intersect it in this direction here, then I would only get a partial. So down here, and they're not quite the same. You'll notice, it might be hard to tell from my picture, but you'll notice that the parabola is a little bit softer curve, so the parabola is going to be cut from this shape here. If I intersect it on that line, having my plane coming down, I'm going to get this kind of a shape, to where that hyperbola, I had this end and I had this end. But the parabola is a little bit softer, the hyperbola is a little bit sharper, and that's specifically looking at my endpoints here. So the parabola can come in, it's going to have a definite endpoint, and then it's going to go out. The hyperbola is going to be more of a jointed, like that. Minor difference, but they are not the same. Also, the parabola is going to grow a lot faster than what you're going to see the hyperbola. The hyperbola is going to level out a bit more. So those are my four primary conics, and those are going to be what I'm going to focus on in this series. But I do have the three degenerate conics. If I look at those, that's the question that they ask is, what happens if I intersect the middle point? So if this is a cone here, and I've got this three-dimensional thing going on, and if this is a cone here, and I've got this three-dimensional thing going on, what happens if I intersect this? Well, I could draw my plane to just intersect that point right there. So I can consider the point to be a degenerate conic. Or I could draw my plane to be this way, and I would simply get a line. Or I could draw two planes intersecting simultaneously at this point, and we would get dual lines. We call it two intersecting lines, like this. Now, these generally aren't studied as part of your conics sections because generally the line is studied in detail on an introductory algebra course and is generally looked at as a function. Because both of these here are functions. Now, if you have a vertical line, that would not be a function, but any other line besides a vertical line would be a function, and all of these lines are non-vertical. Now, in the case of a parabola, some parabolas are functions and are generally studied before you get to a conic section, but not all parabolas are functions, and we'll take a look at that here as we get going to show you. So here's a three-dimensional cone, just from a cone. But the cones, as we mentioned, come from if I put the cone on top of a cone. So I've got two cones going like this. And how am I going to cut these cones? Well, this cone right here, and I only drew on one of them, shows how I can actually cut them. This red, if I cut it along this side, it's going to show me the circle. But keep in mind, this is a cone on top of a cone. So I can get a circle right there. Or if I cut straight across in the plane, well, is this cone going to be affected up here if I cut straight across here? Well, no, it's not. So if I imagine that I cut straight across here, well, I would get a circle. And there's a nice circle from cutting that cone straight across. Now, imagine if I were to cut an ellipse. Now, keep in mind, this plane is going like this. So if I cut my ellipse down on this green line, right here, this is going to be going down this way. Is that going to affect my cone up here? Well, no, it's not. It's going to be going down this way. And I'm going to be getting two surfaces, and they're going to look something like this. So I'm going to have that nice elliptical shape. That's not a circle, but an elliptical shape there. And then finally, well, not finally, I've got two more. This block right here, hopefully you can see the outline, is going to be my parabola. Now notice that if I cut right here, I'm actually not intersecting with this top section. So I'm cutting this portion out, and that's going to be my parabola. Now I can also cut this way and get a parabola if I cut down through the corner here and don't go all the way through. If I go all the way through, I'm going to get the ellipse. But if I cut down generally this way and my cut ends at the bottom of the circle, then I'm going to get another type of parabola. And it's going to look something like this. So here's a cone. If I had this cone, and then I cut out this portion of it, I would have a parabola right there. And that might be familiar from when you were studying functions, a parabola up or a parabola down. We're going to talk about some parabolas that aren't functions. And then finally, if I take, now this one you've got to imagine that I've got both my cones like here. I've got to have these together. And if I cut straight down, well then I would get two pieces. Now I only cut one cone. So this was one cone that was cut, but if you would imagine with me, if you will, that I had two cones here, and both of them were cut straight down, I would then actually get this parabola here, hyperbola here. So I'd have that split section, which would be my fourth section. So the mini-series, we're going to be talking about both of all those in detail, the primary four, the circle, the ellipse, the parabola, and the hyperbola. We are not going to be talking about the degenerate conics in this series, but I did want to point out that there are actually conics and can be looked at as such. All right, so you guys